In class, we've talked about the different types of plate boundaries. There's three different types of plate boundaries you need to be aware of. The first one we're going to talk about is a diverging plate boundary, or it's also known as a divergent plate boundary. This is where the plates move apart of one another. So they're moving away from one another. In the ocean, this is called seafloor spreading, and what forms is a ridge, which is new sea floor. On land, a rift forms. An example of a divergent plate boundary is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge that runs through the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. On land, an example would be Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Those two pieces of land have spread apart, and the Red Sea has filled the land in between. The second type of plate boundary is a sliding boundary, also known as a transform boundary. This is where plates slide past one another horizontally. Faults form, we get lots of earthquakes in a transform boundary, and an example is the San Andreas Fault in California. The third type of plate boundary is a convergent boundary. The first one we're going to talk about is a collision. This is continent-continent. So two pieces of continental crust are going to collide. The plates move towards one another. When two pieces of continental crust collide, mountains form. An example is the Himalayan mountains in India. The next type of convergent boundary we have is one called subduction. The first one is an ocean-ocean convergent plate boundary. Again, the plates collide. What happens though is when two pieces of oceanic crust collide, they're the same density. They're heavy. Okay? The older crust sinks. And what we get is a subduction zone. So the sinking plate is a subduction zone. Up here, this little part is called a trench. On land, a volcanic island is going to form. So Japan is an example of an ocean-ocean convergent boundary. Another type of convergent boundary where we have subduction is an ocean continent. So we have big piece of continental crust, light, less dense, thin piece of oceanic crust, heavy, more dense. Again, the plates collide or move towards one another. What happens is because the oceanic crust is heavier, it subducts, so we get a subduction zone. We get a trench, and then on land, we get a volcanic mountain chain. So the Andes Mountains in South America is an example of an ocean-continent collision where we have a subduction. And understand, earthquakes can happen at all plate boundaries.